Hello and welcome to The Loudspeaker, your definitive guide on how to scale your startup.
This first tip for every fintech startup is
what are the media and press saying about us? How are we being perceived by these people?
PR stunts are any activities that allow you to engage with the audience.
I don't agree with the fact that all publicity is good publicity.
Here is where we talk to communications professionals from all around the world to let you know what are the best practices and cool ideas that you can implement for your startups. Would you like to start off by telling our listeners, if you're ready to get started, a little bit about yourself and your background?
So my name is James Pollard. I run a company called the Advisor Coach LLC. If you're not in the financial services space, you've probably never heard of me, but it's one of the most well-known companies in financial services. And it's basically a marketing consultancy that helps financial advisors specifically get more clients. And I run it. It's theadvisorcoach.com. And I've been blessed to help a lot of people. So it's pretty cool.
Awesome. Yeah, well, I'm happy to have you on because it was interesting how you said about how the restrictions of financial kind of there's so many kind of red tape, and it's not as simple. It's probably like, it sounds like if email marketing or A/B testing was a game, you've got it on the hardest level given your situation. But today we're going to talk about like 5 steps for a beginner to get started in email marketing. And I know you sent over a couple points to myself that you want to discuss. Would you be able to kick off the first one and get the ball rolling with your first point and your first step?
So I think it's important to start off with what is email marketing at its core. So especially for a guy that's for beginners, email marketing is a way for you to reach people at scale, but it's a really unique medium in the sense that you can personalize it and you can show your human side. You need to write it as if it's an email going from you to a friend or a family member. Most people completely miss that. I know that e-commerce brands have a lot of HTML. They have a lot of pictures. They have a lot of stuff like, buy this thing now, 40% off. But what we have found, especially for service professionals, accountants and financial advisors and real estate agents, if it's just the personal plain text email that is going out, every single person is an individual on your email list. And if you need to speak to them that way, rather than just blasting them with messages, images, and HTML and all this other content, it is just a way to reach individuals in your network at scale. That's all email marketing is. You shouldn't overcomplicate it.
Yeah, I think scalable efforts are always the best, because then the worst thing you want is the thing you don't want is a bottleneck. Bottlenecks are the worst, because once you reach them, then it's like crap. You got to like make a jump, or they're the worst. There's a funny show which you reminded me of when you said about they need to be personal. They need to be like someone that you're messaging that you know well. And there's a show that I absolutely love, and it's called The Ricky Gervais Show. It's an animated show that was on HBO a few years ago. And a guy on there, he said he received a message in the post, and his name is Carl Pilkington. And it starts with, "Dear Mr. Dilkington," so they got his name wrong. "You are one of our most valuable customers." And it's just the most ironic thing. Yeah. But you hear about that stuff all the time, and it's so true. That's easily a way to just put someone off, like just screwing something as simple as that up. So on the next point as well, I'd love to know like what kind of tools you would recommend. And I know you mentioned a few to me. I'd love to get your advice and thoughts on this.
So there's a bunch in the email marketing world. You've got Drip. I personally use Drip. It has turned into more of an e-commerce brand than anything else. Like they're helping Shopify stores. So if you're someone who runs an e-commerce brand, that's probably the right one for you. Constant Contact is another one. They have built their brand around bloggers and influencers. There's Lead Pilot for financial advisors. There's an email marketing platform within there. There are so many services out there, but as a beginner, since I'm trying to keep this for beginners now, the basic sequence that you want, the basic flow, you obviously want a website, somewhere to have content where people can opt in. Then you want an opt-in service. The one I personally use is called Opt-in Monster. It's fantastic. They have a ton of different features. You can customize it a million different ways. We don't have time to get into that today. but there's that. There's lead pages, which is another one. There's Sumo, which is another one. You need a way to collect the email addresses. And then you need a way to do the email marketing itself, which is Drip, Constant Contact, MailChimp is another one. You just need a way to send out the email. So that is your basic sequence. If you get started with those three, you will be able to hit the ground running.
Awesome, excellent. I should say I got the points confused. So well done for being flexible with me there, because the next question I was going to ask was if people wanted sources of information, where's the best place for them to go? That was going to be the second point. So we'll skip back to that. But to be honest, they're all good points. It's like there's no chronological kind of order to this. It's just 5 steps which everyone can take together in one big chunk and then just roll with it. So yeah, if you've got any pointers for information, where could someone go for email marketing? Like how did you learn it out of interest?
So one of the, I come from the marketing world. So I've studied all the greats, Gary Halbert, Gary Bencivenga. If people aren't in the marketing world, those names probably don't mean anything to them. So, but that's my background. What I've noticed, and I've helped lots of people with email marketing, it is intimidating. I will admit that. If you're starting off and you've never done email marketing before, it is intimidating because it seems like there's a lot of stuff and there is, rightly so. But you need to understand that the companies that provide email marketing services and opt-in pages and autoresponders and whatnot, their interests are aligned with yours. For example, if Constant Contact doesn't help you to send out emails and you do it effectively and you get results with them, if they can't help you with that, you're not going to pay them anymore. So in order for them to get your money and to keep you as a customer, they have to help you and they have to make sure that you get results. The way they do that is by having resource guides, different PDFs, videos, live chat. They have so many different resources available on their site. And I say Constant Contact as an example, but all email marketing services have this. If you just go into their blogs and you take advantage of the free resources that they have available to you, it is an absolute gold mine because your interests are aligned. You want to get results with email marketing, and they definitely want to make sure you get results with email marketing so you stay a customer. So take advantage of all of their blogs, all of their resources, follow them on social media. If they have podcasts, subscribe to those, because that's their goal, is to get you to do email marketing successfully.
Yeah, it's all about that value add at the end of the day. And if they don't add that value, someone else is going to, for sure. Yeah. And that's kind of similar to what we try and do with this podcast. Like, we don't try and monetize it at all in any way. It's just a resource for anyone that's interested to just like plug in, listen. And you know what, further down the line, if they want communication or digital communication, PR services, then they come to us. And it's the same with any of those that you mentioned. So yeah, I think it's a great world that we live in the sense that you can almost learn anything. You can probably learn anything from YouTube. But I mean, we don't just have YouTube. We've got so many other sites. So it's, yeah, possibilities are endless there. If you're interested in seeing how Publicize can grow your startup, sign up for a free PR assessment on our website. And for a limited time only, exclusively for the loudspeaker listeners, you can receive an SEO assessment as part of your package for any tier of service at no extra charge with this special promotion. To find out more, visit publicize.co/LSpromo. And now, to get into the third point, I would love to know a little bit more about what you think everyone should know before getting into email marketing, before getting started. What like knowledge would you love to impart onto someone?
You should know your market. You should know your end consumer, the person you're trying to reach, the person you're trying to target very, very, very well. I mean, I can't state that enough. In my world, in financial services, this blows a lot of people's minds. The most common emails that tend to get sent out by financial advisors are what's called stock market commentary emails. And these are emails where financial advisors say, the S&P is up X% this week. Here's what you should do. Or the S&P is down X% this week. Here's what you should do. Here are the winners of this week in the stock market, the losers this week. People don't respond to that. It's this thing that has just been pushed and pushed and pushed into the industry, but the end user doesn't care. Some of the best emails that I have ever sent for financial advisors have been about TV shows, have been about books. And when I tell people that, it's like a light bulb goes off. For example, There's a financial advisor in my world who works specifically with nurses. And we had an email that he sent out about Grey's Anatomy. And he talked about all the mistakes that nurses essentially made in Grey's Anatomy. Real nurses who do this for a living will, and if you're a nurse, you probably know what I'm talking about. You will watch Grey's Anatomy and you will say, you don't do CPR that way. You don't insert an IV that way. She didn't even look for a vein. And they laugh at this. So his email was basically, I was watching Grey's Anatomy last night and I noticed mistake 1, mistake 2, mistake 3. What other mistakes have you noticed? Like respond, he's getting engagement or whatever. That is what works because he knows his target market. He's talking to nurses. They don't care about the stock market commentary. They're involved in their lives, in their work, with their patients. That is what they know. That's what they experience. And that's what they want to talk about. So when he sent that email out, it did so much better than anything else in the financial services space simply because he knew his market. So that is by far the most important thing that people can do when they want to get into email marketing, is to know who they want to talk with.
Yeah, that's good advice. And I also, one thing that stands out from that example you just gave, it sounds like he was talking about something that he was interested in as well. It wasn't just a case of, oh crap, I need to send out an email, better send something out. It was, he was thinking about it. He had this email like in the back of the mind. It came to him as an idea in what I can assume can only be his personal time watching TV on a show that he liked and enjoyed, and then shared that with other people, and that resonated. So I definitely feel that you're absolutely right. Know your audience, know what they'll like, and also it should probably be something that you like and enjoy too, not something you're like, I suppose, trying
correct.
to just
And
get
that
into.
leads to better content. Because what happens is, let's say that you have a list of 10,000 people and you send out an email talking about Grey's Anatomy, for example. Then your next email is talking about how you love listening to the Beatles. The next email is about how you went out to Olive Garden that night. It sounds silly, but here's what's going to happen. There's going to be a small percentage of your list that's going to relate to Grey's Anatomy, and they're going to say, oh my goodness, he watches Grey's Anatomy too. This is awesome. We have something in common. When you send out the second email talking about the Beatles, a percentage of your list is going to say, I listen to the Beatles. I love the Beatles. We have something in common. Then Olive Garden or wherever you go out to dinner, say, I like Olive Garden if that's possible. I don't know.
Send some free stuff.
They're going to relate. But that builds rapport. Now stack that on top of another email and another email and another email. It's not unheard of to get 5 or 6 of those connection points with the people in your email list. When you do that, you will connect to them more than any other brand that just is sending out sales stuff, any other brand that is sending out percentage discounts or stock market commentary or updates. They're connecting with a real person because they will know that this person goes to the restaurants I like. This person listens to the same music I like. If all else being equal, they're going to support your business.
And it humanizes the person behind the computer as well, the person behind those emails. Because I think the one thing that I understand from sales is that people buy from people they like and trust. And if they can humanize you, then your emails aren't just automated emails or a sales process. They're actually more personable. So it goes back to that like main point you said, I suppose, at the beginning, or like send an email like you're actually talking to someone you like and want to engage with. Yeah.
Yep.
So
absolutely. And I've sent emails every single day since 2017, like personally. And you made a good point about writing about things that you enjoy, things that make sense to you, things that you want to do. The reason you want to do that is because you will not run out of content ideas, because the content is your life. You're doing stuff every day. Hopefully you're watching the series you like or interacting with people you enjoy. And the deeper you are in your market, the more likely it is that you're going to interact with people that they like as well. Another example, in the teacher world, there's a guy named Jerry Brooks, and teachers will know who I'm talking about. He's a YouTube star. If you Google him, Jerry Brooks, he makes a ton of funny videos. The financial advisors who work with teachers, every time they talk about a Jerry Brooks video or link to him, they get responses because he talks about stuff like, going back to school with coronavirus and makes jokes about it and how parents make these silly calls or whatever. And to the person who is not a teacher, it doesn't make any sense. But to someone who is a teacher, they get it, they relate to it, and they immediately latch onto it. And by the power of association, when the financial advisor talks about the same things that the teacher is interested in, and it's kind of like an inside group thing, it's like a secret handshake. It's like, oh, wait, you know about Jerry Books too? They just engage. It's amazing, but it sounds so simple telling you this, but I guarantee you most people are not going to do what I just said, even though it works.
Yeah, no, I definitely, I've been trying to do that more in my podcast and just general when it comes to promoting content. It can be difficult to be creative at first, or to even think of unique angles of how to fit certain things in, but the value is definitely there. And I think once you change your perspective of how to turn everyday stuff into content for whatever you're producing, then for sure, yeah, it's a gold mine. So I'd love to go on to your last point, and just understand how someone can measure the success of their first email marketing campaign.
So it really depends on your business, and it really depends on your goals. If you are brand new, just getting started, I would say that your goal should be to get engagement from your list. You need to have a baseline, because without a baseline, you don't know if you're improving your open rates, if you're hurting your open rates, if you're improving your click-through rates, or if you're hurting your click-through rates. So you need to have at least some baseline. So just send out emails normally. Don't try anything fancy. Get 10, maybe 20 under your belt to get that baseline. If you see that people are opening, if you see that people are engaging, you're doing the right thing, then you can begin split testing. You can change your subject lines. You can change your call to action within the email to see if it helps or hurts you. But if you're in business past that, like initial testing stage, or initial baseline stage, I should say, it's going to be sales. People focus on so many different vanity metrics, like open rates for the long term, or click-through rates for the long term. Past that baseline, meaning they're in for year 2 or year 3 and they're still bragging about their open rates. It's crazy. Some of my least opened emails have gotten the most sales, and there's a very specific process to that. We don't have time to get into it, but that is what I would rather have: an email that gets opened fewer times but makes more money than have an email that gets a higher open rate but makes less money, because I'm running a business. The metric I use is sales, and financial advisors, when I help them, the metric they use is appointments. There are so many people out there who are in my world who are trying to sell these advisors things like improve your open rates and improve your click-through rates, but it doesn't matter. When they get into what I teach, they find that what I just said is true, where some of the emails have lower open rates but set more appointments. And it's because it's more dialed into the audience. The subject line calls out a specific type of person and everybody else ignores it. But the appointments for them, sales for me, if you're in business, it's probably going to be sales. If you're a service professional, probably going to be appointments. That is what you need to worry about. Don't lose too much sleep over all the vanity metrics involved in email marketing, because at the end of the day, vanity metrics don't move your business forward. Sales do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a perfect point, because the truth is, vanity metrics immediately came to mind when you were kind of discussing this, because we have the exact same thing in podcasting. For example, you can have a podcast that has hundreds of thousands of listeners, or thousands, or whatever listeners. But the truth is, I know that some podcasts have been incredibly successful at doing what they do, and have even opened with, like, perhaps promoting a product or service with 5 figures in a promotion, and all they have is like 500 listeners a week, because those 500 listeners are the exact people that they want to target. So it doesn't matter if they've got hundreds of thousands, if there's like 99% of them are just not the right audience for them, or just tuning and finding them. So yeah, you're absolutely right. I suppose focus on the content and don't get carried away about like all the vanity metrics. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, I mean, I have a podcast as well. I know exactly what you're talking about. I have the Financial Advisor Marketing Podcast. If I wanted to have a bigger audience, it would be very easy for me to do so. I could run a Facebook ad linking to iTunes. I could set it to iPhone only, connected to Wi-Fi, and I could get a bunch of listeners. The problem is, they most likely, if I just did for reach, they'd most likely not be financial advisors, which means they wouldn't trickle down, which means they wouldn't join my email list. They wouldn't listen to all the episodes. They just wouldn't be a right fit. So my podcast audience is, I mean, it's not small, but it's small compared to like a Joe Rogan, Dave Ramsey. Like, it's minuscule, tiny.
Yeah.
But it does fairly well. I mean, because a lot of the people within financial services listen.
Mm. Yeah, well, if you're reaching the people you need to reach, that's the goal. Exactly like the email marketing, like you said. And on the topic of your podcast and your work, James, if people do want to find out more about you or listen to your show, how can they find you? How can they follow you? And how can they sign up to your emails?
Wow, that is a very good question. So the website is theadvisorcoach.com. If you are a financial advisor and you want to join my email list for some reason, it's theadvisorcoach.com/57. So 57. The opt-in that you get there is, it's called 57 Marketing Tips for Financial Advisors. That's another tip that I'd like to share with the audience. A lot of people make the mistake of having their opt-in be a little template or a little checklist or a little guide. And they're sold this idea that it needs to be easily consumable. It's completely wrong. And I know you asked me about split testing, and I imagine you're creating content in the future about split testing. Anyone listening to me right now, try this. Take your opt-in, test it, test a template or a checklist or a one-page cheat sheet or guide or whatever against something like substantial. My personal opt-in is 85 pages long. The reason why I do that is because the longer amount of time people spend with me, the more likely they are to do business with me. Someone who has created something that's literally 85 pages long, it signals authority, it signals credibility. It just tells people like this guy's legit, rather than just one little page or a little template. So seriously, if you're interested in split testing, try that out. That's a good tip. Trust me. And then the Financial Advisor Marketing Podcast is the show that I have. We're over 100 episodes at this point. I don't see myself stopping anytime soon. It's just a lot of fun. So I hope you enjoy doing this podcast as well.
Definitely. Yeah. No, thank you so much for joining me today, James. And yeah, I can tell if you're as articulate on your podcast as you are on this one, then I can tell it's going to be a good listen.
Thank you. I appreciate that.